It's just because we've been doing so much together as the Bee Gees that I never really had the opportunity to do that, or really the desire. I mean, yeah, I felt like it, but it was like April this year I woke up one morning and thought, yeah, all right, I'll do it.
My greatest regret is that every brother I've lost was in a moment when we were not getting on. And so I have to live with that. Yeah. I'm the last man standing.
Robin Gibb didn't just sing about heartbreak, he lived it. You get the sense he probably spent as much time scribbling lyrics as he did reaching for a tissue. His voice always carried this worn, weathered quality, like he'd been through enough storms to know what he was talking about. When he wrote songs like To Love Somebody, it wasn't just him making music. It felt more like him slowly working through something heavy and personal, the kind of thing that listeners could instantly connect to. Even on the Bee Gees' more upbeat dance floor hits, there was this undercurrent of sadness in the way Robin sang, a reminder that he could never really leave that part of himself behind. It wasn't just about hitting the right notes. It was about the feeling underneath, the ache that still comes through even decades later. This is the story of how Robin Gibb turned grief into melody, and why his songs still feel like open wounds decades later.
They're printing different ones, and they've been going around to all the... I know! Yes, here we are in the Warners, the roof of Warner Brothers. Yes, really nice up here, isn't it? It's a lovely day.
Robin Hugh Gibb was born on December 22, 1949, on the Isle of Man, which is a small island tucked between England and Ireland. Right from the start, he had a bit of a different vibe compared to his siblings. He was the more sensitive one, kind of lost in his own head a lot of the time, and he tended to lean toward introspection and melancholy rather than being loud or outgoing. Music wasn't just a pastime for him. It really became his safe space, the thing he could always turn to when the world felt too heavy. When the Gibb family packed up and moved to Australia in 1958, the three brothers, Barry, Morris, and Robin, started performing together. They were still kids, but they were already doing little shows and dreaming of bigger things. Even then, people noticed Robin's voice. It wasn't just that he could hit certain notes. There was something raw in his delivery. He had this uncanny ability to make a song feel deeply personal, like he was letting you in on a secret, even when the lyrics themselves were fairly straightforward. Growing up, though, wasn't all smooth sailing for Robin. Compared to his brothers, he often felt like the odd one out. Barry naturally stepped into the role of leader. Morris was easygoing and tried to keep the peace. And Robin, well, he sometimes felt like he didn't quite fit either role. On top of that, he dealt with insomnia and bouts of anxiety, which didn't exactly make things easier. Music, for him, was a way to manage all that. It was the outlet that allowed him to put feelings into something tangible. He once explained it pretty simply. Music is the only way I can express what I feel. Talking doesn't do it. That quote sums him up really well. He wasn't the kind of person to spill his emotions in everyday conversation, but give him a melody, and suddenly he could channel all that inner turbulence into something beautiful.
On this very roof,
John Logie Baird.
50 years ago, John Logie Baird dropped his trousers.
I said, wonder what's on telly.
Tonight, I'm bored stiff.
By 1968, the Bee Gees were already making a name for themselves, but things really took a turn when they released I Started a Joke. It's one of those songs that instantly sticks with you, the kind of ballad that feels both haunting and strangely comforting at the same time. Robin was the one who sang lead on it, and honestly, his performance is what turned it from just a good song into something unforgettable. The lyrics touch on themes of regret and misunderstanding, almost like someone dealing with the fallout of being misinterpreted, and they carry this heavy emotional weight. Even though the song was written as part of the group's usual collaborative process, the way Robin delivered it made people feel like it was his personal story. He had this way of singing that didn't just sound sad, it sounded like he was living through the sadness as he sang. Fans picked up on that immediately, and so did critics. A lot of people commented on how vulnerable his voice was, how it felt fragile but powerful at the same time. When he sang it live, Robin often closed his eyes, almost like he was retreating inward, tapping into something private and painful. One critic even described his voice in that song as a tender wound, which feels pretty spot on. The single went on to be a worldwide hit, climbing the charts in several countries and helping to cement the Bee Gees as major players on the global stage. But for Robin, it was never just about sales or chart positions. Singing "I Started a Joke" seemed to give him some kind of emotional release, like he was letting go of feelings he couldn't put into words any other way. That mix of commercial success and deeply personal expression is part of what makes the song so special, even decades later.
You have had solo success in the past.
Yes,
So
but-
when you get a little taste of it, is it nice in a way to break out of decisions by committee and being part of a group and being with your brothers all the time?
I love writing with my brothers, and I love being a Bee Gee, and I still feel like a Bee Gee even as a solo artist.
By 1969, things inside the Bee Gees were getting pretty messy. The group had been on this incredible run of success, but all that pressure mixed with clashing personalities started to take its toll. Robin, in particular, was feeling pushed to the sidelines, like his voice and ideas weren't being given the same weight as Barry's. The breaking point came with the song "First of May." Barry was chosen to sing lead on it, and Robin, who thought he should have taken the vocal, took it as a pretty big slight. It wasn't just about that one song, it was about feeling overlooked in general. Not long after that, Robin decided to step away from the group. What followed was kind of a lonely but creatively rich chapter for him. He moved into a flat in London where he pretty much poured himself into writing. Out of that period came his first solo album, Robin's Reign. It's a bit of a hidden gem now, but at the time it showed just how unique his artistic voice was when he was working on his own. The standout track was "Saved by the Bell." He recorded it in March of 1969, and it came out later that summer. The song is this sweeping, melancholy ballad with orchestral arrangements that make it feel almost cinematic. Robin's voice is front and center, fragile but strong at the same time, and it really showcased how he could carry a song entirely on his own. The single ended up reaching number 2 in the UK, and even hit the top spot in several other countries. So despite the turmoil, he proved he could stand on his own. Robin later admitted that he wrote the song during a really low point. He described being in this haze of sadness and isolation, and you can hear that in the lyrics. His brother Morris did lend a hand on the recording, but the soul of the track, the heartache, the vulnerability, was pure Robin. Lines like "I cried for you, I cried for two" feel almost like someone scribbling down confessions in a diary, which is probably why so many listeners connected with it. Critics at the time called the song hauntingly triumphant, which is a pretty great way of putting it. It's sad, yes, but also strangely uplifting in the way it channels all that pain into something beautiful. Fans felt the same. They could hear every ounce of emotion in Robin's voice. Even now, "Saved by the Bell" stands as one of the best examples of what he could do outside the shadow of the Bee Gees.
Talk about your style, and I guess one would describe it as a combination of romance, of emotion, and of harmony. Can you describe or dissect the components, though, that make the Bee Gees what they are, creatively?
Oh, it's a little bit difficult because from where we're sitting, it's not that easy to be that objective. You let me sit over there.
By 1970, Robin found his way back to the Bee Gees, and the timing couldn't have been better. The split hadn't been easy, for him or for the group, and getting back together gave them all a chance to reset. The early 70s Bee Gees sound was pretty different from what most people associate with them today. Instead of the big disco beats, they leaned into softer, more introspective songs, experimenting with arrangements and lyrics that were a little moodier and more reflective. But then, by the middle of the decade, everything changed. The Bee Gees tapped into the rising disco wave, and suddenly, they weren't just popular, they were everywhere. Songs like Jive Talkin' and, of course, Stayin' Alive turned them into global superstars. The Saturday Night Fever soundtrack in particular became one of the defining cultural moments of the era, practically the sound of the late 70s. Even in that glittery, high-energy period, Robin's emotional side never went away. He had this gift for bringing depth to a song, even when it was dressed up in disco rhythms. Take How Deep Is Your Love. Barry might have sung lead on it, but Robin's fingerprints are all over it. He played a big role in shaping the emotional tone of the track, giving it that vulnerable edge that helped make it more than just another love song. The result was one of the Bee Gees' most enduring ballads, and it's still considered one of the great love songs of all time. Behind the scenes, though, life wasn't always as dazzling as the Bee Gees' public image suggested. Robin continued to battle insomnia and periods of depression, often staying up late into the night writing songs by himself. His wife, Dweena, once described him as a man who felt everything too deeply, which really captures what made him both brilliant and troubled. He carried this sensitivity that fueled his art, but it also weighed on him heavily in private.
Tell me about alcoholism, and tell me first of all about your first drink. Where'd you get your first drink?
John Lennon was the first one who gave me a drink.
What did he buy you?
A Scotch and Coke. That was the drink of the day. I mean, everybody drank Scotch. I mean, I didn't actually cross the line until I was 25. So I could drink just like the next guy. I could drink anybody under the table and next day feel fabulous. No hangover, nothing.
Tributes for the late Bee Gee, Maurice Gibb, are being overshadowed tonight by family anger over the last hours of his life. The surviving Gibb brothers have questioned the hospital treatment of the musician, who died yesterday from a heart attack after abdominal surgery.
The 2000s ended up being an incredibly difficult chapter for Robin. In 2003, his twin brother Maurice passed away very suddenly from complications following surgery, and it hit Robin like a thunderbolt. The two of them had always shared this special bond, not just as brothers, but as creative partners. And Robin later said that losing Maurice felt like losing half of myself. After that, the Bee Gees as a group came to an end. It just didn't feel right to carry on under the same name. Robin tried to channel his grief into work, throwing himself into solo projects and charity efforts. He stayed active in music, still writing and performing, but there was always this underlying sense of loss that never really left him. Fans could see it too. His performances often carried a weight that hadn't been there before. By 2010, Robin was facing another challenge. In the summer of 2010, Robin was still performing regularly, but his health began to give him serious trouble.
Robin Gibb has woken from a coma he fell into last week. The Bee Gee has apparently been able to nod and communicate with his family.
On August 14th, while on stage in Belgium, he suddenly felt sharp abdominal pains. Just a few days later, on August 18th, he ended up having emergency surgery at a hospital in Oxford. Thankfully, he recovered well enough to get back on the road, even traveling as far as New Zealand and Australia to perform. Around this time, he also threw himself into charity work, helping raise funds for the Bomber Command Memorial in Green Park, London, a cause he felt deeply about because of his admiration for the Royal Air Force. Despite his health scares, Robin didn't slow down creatively. He worked on a large-scale classical project with his son, Robin John, the Titanic Requiem. The piece, recorded by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, was written to mark the 100th anniversary of the Titanic's sinking in 2012. It showed a very different side of Robin's musical interests, away from pop and disco, and highlighted his love of history and orchestral music. But his health issues continued to interrupt his plans. In April 2011, he had to cancel a tour of Brazil, and later that year, in October, a Paris show was called off as well. Around the same time, he was rushed to the hospital again with severe abdominal pain. When he reappeared a few days later on the Alan Titchmarsh show, fans were shocked to see how frail and thin he looked. Not long after, another scheduled performance at the Poppy Appeal concert in London had to be cancelled at the last minute. In November 2011, Robin received devastating news. He had liver cancer, which had spread to his digestive system. He continued to make brave public appearances here and there, but by March 2012, he was back in the hospital for intestinal surgery. The following month, things worsened when he contracted pneumonia and slipped into a coma. Miraculously, he came out of it, and for a short time, it looked like he might rally. Sadly, on May 20th, 2012, Robin passed away in a London hospital at the age of 62. Early reports said cancer was the cause, but his son Robin John later explained that the cancer had actually gone into remission and that it was kidney failure that ultimately took his life. Even in his final years, Robin remained active, creative, and dedicated to both his music and charitable causes. That determination, even while facing such serious illness, says a lot about the kind of person he was. His death left a huge hole not just in his family, but also in the world of music. Barry later said something that really summed him up. Robin was the most sensitive of us. He felt everything. That's why his songs hurt so much. It's a beautiful way of putting it. Robin's gift was that he could take all that sensitivity, all that pain and emotion, and turn it into music that touched people everywhere. Robin and his brother Barry had a famously complicated relationship, full of both closeness and tension that lasted for decades. Even in the years leading up to Robin's death, they had their share of disagreements. But at Robin's funeral, Barry spoke openly about all of that, showing a side of reconciliation and love. He said, "Even right up to the end, we found conflict with each other, which now means nothing. It just means nothing. If there's conflict in your lives, get rid of it." It was a simple, honest reminder of how fleeting arguments can feel in the bigger picture. Barry also spoke about Robin's deep connection with his twin brother Morris. He described them both as beautiful and said he took comfort in knowing they were together again. Barry went further, reflecting on the lasting impact Morris's death had on Robin. "I think the greatest pain for Robin in the past 10 years was losing his twin brother, and I think it did all kinds of things to him," he said. It was a touching acknowledgement that behind Robin's music and his public persona was a man shaped profoundly by love, loss, and family bonds. What makes Robin Gibb's music still feel so powerful today is that it was always honest. He wasn't the kind of songwriter who sat down trying to predict what would sell or what would fit into the latest trend. For him, music was a kind of lifeline, a way of working through whatever he was feeling at the time. A lot of the songs people love most from him were written in those quiet late-night hours when he couldn't sleep and his mind wouldn't stop turning things over. You can really hear that honesty in the songs themselves. "I Started a Joke" has that trembling, almost fragile delivery that makes it feel like a confession whispered into the dark. "Saved by the Bell" came out of a lonely period in his life, and you can practically hear the isolation woven into every line. And even in "How Deep Is Your Love," where Barry took the lead vocal, you can feel Robin's influence shaping the song into something more tender and emotional than just a straightforward love ballad. Robin never tried to hide behind flashy production or an over-the-top image. He let the cracks show in his voice, and that's part of what gave it so much depth. He was vulnerable in a way that not many artists of that era allowed themselves to be, especially in the highly polished world of pop and disco. That's probably why his music has lasted the way it has. When you listen to Robin sing, you don't just hear a catchy tune, you hear someone who really meant it. His songs remind us that behind every hit there's a person with their own struggles and heartbreaks, and sometimes those personal battles are what make the music connect so deeply. Robin Gibb didn't just sing songs, he lived them. His voice was a vessel for grief, love, and longing. He wrote while sobbing, not for effect, but because he had no other choice. Music was his therapy, his confession, his lifeline. Today, when we hear his voice, we don't just hear melody, we hear emotion. We hear a man who felt too much and gave it all away in song. And in doing so, he made millions feel less alone. So, what do you think about the legend Robin Gibb? Let us know in the comments section. Also, if you found this video thrilling, be sure to leave a comment, subscribe to our channel for more videos on your favorite icons.